The sun is warm on your back the same way it has been every morning of your life. You're a Triceratops, grazing beside a slow-moving river, your herd scattered peacefully across the floodplain. Nothing about today feels different from any other day in the last 165 million years that dinosaurs have called this planet home. That's exactly the problem. Nobody alive right now has any way of knowing that today is the last ordinary day this world will ever have. Here's what most people get wrong about the world you're standing in. Dinosaurs weren't waiting around to vanish all at once. They first appeared over 230 million years ago, and across nearly 165 million years of dominance, thousands of species rose and quietly disappeared, long before anything catastrophic ever arrived. That was simply how your world worked. Continents drifted apart beneath your feet, carving new oceans and splitting herds that once grazed side by side. Climates warmed and cooled across millions of years. Forests grew, collapsed, and turned into entirely different landscapes. New predators evolved to match new prey. Fresh plant species spread while older ones vanished, forcing entire herds to compete for whatever ground was left. Some species adapted, others couldn't keep pace and disappeared, replaced by whatever evolved to fill the gap. That's why so many of the dinosaurs that ruled the Jurassic were long gone by the time your Cretaceous world took shape. Extinction was never unusual out here. It was simply the price of staying alive this long. Not far from your herd, Tyrannosaurus rex rules this stretch of North America, while hadrosaurs and swift raptors share the same floodplain. And far to the south, titanosaurs larger than anything you'll ever see move slowly across their own continent. Dinosaurs still occupy every continent on Earth right now, filling ecosystems with more variety than at almost any other point in their long history. For years, scientists believed populations like yours were already fading before disaster struck. But newer fossil evidence tells a more complicated story. Many researchers now think dinosaurs were still thriving, diverse, and healthy right up until the very end. That debate is still unsettled today. Were you already struggling or interrupted at the height of everything you'd built? Standing here in the sunlight, you have no way of knowing which version of the story is true. You only know that everything around you still looks exactly the way it always has. Then the sky changes. Not clouds, not weather, a point of light, brighter than the sun itself, tearing across the horizon before you even have time to lift your head. For a moment, every animal on this floodplain freezes the exact same way. Heads lifted towards something none of you have any name for and no instinct built to answer. A giant asteroid 10 to 12 kilometers wide is about to strike what will one day be called the Yucatan Peninsula, moving faster than sound itself, carving a crater nearly 180 kilometers across and releasing more energy than billions of nuclear bombs combined. The light alone reaches you first, flooding the floodplain in something closer to a second sunrise than anything natural. Then comes the heat, rolling across the land in an invisible wave, scorching treetops that were green a heartbeat earlier. Within minutes, the shockwave reaches you. The ground doesn't just shake, it moves like water, rising and falling beneath your feet in a way solid Earth was never supposed to move. Somewhere beyond the horizon, tsunamis are already swallowing coastlines that have stood unchanged for millions of years. And firestorms are lighting up the sky in every direction you look, throwing embers higher than any tree on this floodplain. Birds fall out of the air, unable to keep their wings under them. The river beside you churns violently, as if something enormous had disturbed its bed from below. Whatever happens next, the world you grazed in this morning will never look like this again. But here's the twist almost nobody expects. The impact itself isn't what ends things for most of you. The real disaster is still coming. Dust, ash, and sulfur are being thrown so high into the atmosphere that they'll circle the entire planet. And within days, the sun you felt on your back every morning of your life barely reaches the ground at all. Scientists call what follows an impact winter. Plants that depend on that sunlight begin dying by the millions, and every herbivore that depends on those plants starts running out of food at the exact same time. This isn't a single terrible day. It's a slow environmental collapse that will stretch across months, then years, then possibly decades, long after the fires have gone out and the ground has stopped shaking. Millions of years from now, long after every trace of this morning has turned to stone, researchers digging through the layer of rock left behind by this exact moment will find the proof scattered across the planet. A thin band unusually rich in iridium, a metal rare on Earth but common in asteroids. Grains of quartz crushed under pressures that only an impact of this size could produce. Tiny beads of glass, flash frozen mid-flight after being melted and flung into the sky. And just above that layer, the fossils of almost everything you've ever known simply stop appearing. None of that evidence exists yet. Right now, it's only happening. You don't know any of this yet. What you know is that the plants around you are dying faster than you can find new ones, and the calves in your herd, the ones that need the most food and can least afford to go without it, are struggling first. Triceratops like you were never built for this. You need enormous amounts of food every single day just to survive. You can't switch easily to whatever scraps remain, and even if enough of you make it through, rebuilding a population this size takes generations you no longer have. The adults still try to guard the youngest of you the same way they always have, standing between the calves and whatever danger the collapsing world throws next. But there's no herd formation, no horn, no armor built for a threat that isn't a predator at all, just an empty landscape with nothing left to eat. Scientists call it a cascading extinction, one collapse triggering the next, moving through an ecosystem piece by piece until almost nothing that depended on the last piece is left standing. Here's something else worth knowing, even if it changes nothing for you personally. Around this same period, enormous volcanic eruptions called the Deccan Traps have been reshaping the atmosphere on the other side of the planet for hundreds of thousands of years, releasing carbon dioxide and sulfur that likely stressed ecosystems long before this moment ever arrived. Most scientists today don't believe the volcanoes alone could have done this, but many think they weakened the world just enough that when the asteroid finally struck, almost nothing had the strength left to absorb the blow. One slow-burning stress added quietly on top of another, until the final shock was simply more than the system could hold. Weeks pass, then months. The skies stayed dark and cold in a way they were never supposed to. One by one, the giants around you, titanosaurs, hadrosaurs, the Tyrannosaurus rex that once ruled this same ground, face the exact same math you're facing. The biggest plant eaters go first because they depend the most directly on vegetation that has already died. Then the predators that hunted them follow soon after, with nothing left to hunt. Species that shared this floodplain for millions of years, that competed, hunted, and adapted around each other for longer than almost anything else on the planet, now run out of time within the same handful of months. By the time conditions might have slowly improved, the world you were built for simply doesn't exist anymore. Not everything from this world disappears, though. Somewhere, low to the ground, small and easy to overlook, a lineage of feathered dinosaurs survives on almost nothing. A few scattered seeds, one of the only food sources still available once the plants are gone. Their small size means they need far less to stay alive. Their fast reproduction means the ones who make it through can rebuild in years instead of generations. Some find shelter in burrows and crevices the larger animals were never built to fit into, riding out the worst of the darkness while everything exposed above ground pays the price for staying in the open. None of that makes survival easy. It only makes it possible. The sun you felt on your back this morning doesn't return the way you remember it. Not for you, not for almost anything built the way you were built. But somewhere in that same darkened sky, wings are still beating. Every bird alive today carries that same lineage forward, a direct, unbroken line back to this exact morning when the sky first changed and the light you were standing in became the last ordinary light this world would ever see. Out of everything the age of dinosaurs produced, the giants, the hunters, the herds, it was the smallest, quietest survivors who carried it all forward. If you had to be one dinosaur lineage on that last ordinary morning, would you choose size and power, or would you choose to be small enough to make it through? Tell us below.